Hello, it's Laura Shantz, consultant, and I'm going to try to produce a bite-sized video on trauma-informed practice for the DLP. There's, of course, tons we could talk about with trauma-informed practices, but I'm going to try to keep us as focused as I can. So as you can see from the opening quote, that developing a trauma-informed practice helps all of your students, the ones for whom we know they have experienced trauma, the ones for whom we don't know, they may have experienced trauma and we don't know, or we don't know the details. And even for our students who have not experienced trauma, but we want them to have a positive and dynamic experience in our classroom also. So it's good for all, necessary for some, good for all. So I've used these amazing resources, which I can't recommend enough, for some of the resources that I'm sharing with you. Fostering Resilient Learners, Kristen Sowers and Pete Hall, excellent resource. And this is from the same book, but a resource chart, Creating a Trauma-Sensitive Classroom. So if you ever want to get your hands on those, let me know and I'll help you out. So I took a chart about what flight, fight, or freeze looks like in the classroom and have adapted it slightly for what it would look like, does look like in the DLP. So flight, withdrawing, leaving the meet, skipping class altogether, avoiding interaction, becoming disengaged, not responding to your emails or phone calls, not handing anything in. Fight, probably a little bit less obvious in the fully online setting, but could still be present, acting out verbally or in the chat, expressing aggression, acting extra silly, exhibiting defiance, or arguing. And then for freeze, exhibiting numbness, so not seeing any range of emotion or response, refusing to answer, refusing to ask questions or to seek help or get needs met, feeling unable to move or to act. The other thing to consider as a teacher is what is under your control versus what is under your influence. So this is just a helpful chart for you. You cannot control whether student A joins your class today. However, you can influence the way you welcome them when they do arrive, or the way that you encourage them when you do have opportunity to communicate with them. Can't control whether student B will take advantage of the extra resources or supports you're offering, but you can influence the attention you give to that student at any point in time that you are working with them. You can't control if a parent gets upset with you, but you can influence how you listen and read and hear their needs and their concern and how you choose to respond. And you cannot control how a student chooses to behave under stress. We're all under some amount of stress these days, and it seems to be growing again. You can't control how others respond, but you can influence how you respond and the environment that you provide, and your willingness to always look at your students' needs over their behavior, because their behavior is always expressing a need. Which leads to this chart. So when students are behaving in a way that seems, and you can see down the left column, a variety of descriptors, they could have kind of 4 categories of needs, and we'll just quickly kind of talk through each one and how we could respond. So they could have emotional needs, the need to regulate their feelings, which may be a little bit intense or out of control. So we can provide a safe break. Maybe we're in the middle of something synchronous and we can sense we need to take a little time out. And maybe we even have opportunity for a check-in with a student. We can teach and prompt students to use mindfulness strategies or social emotional learning strategies and develop them ourselves as well. Maybe the student has relationship needs, the need to connect with fellow humans. I think we are all feeling this in varying degrees at this time and over these last 8 months. So checking in, connecting with a student prior to a transition or change, prior to change between block A and block B or end of the day, so that student doesn't feel just all of a sudden cut off from you, but has had an opportunity to transition and process that change. Enable interaction between peers, find ways to have your students connect with each other, or maybe bringing other adults into your classroom for variety. A student could be expressing their need for control, the need to feel like they're in charge of their own dynamic or situation, maybe giving the student a job or a responsibility during a meet or in your classroom, something that they can have control over. Also being predictable with your routines, but then also knowing when to offer a choice when a student needs to feel that power of, I can choose whether to do this or this as my next step. And then certainly physical needs, which could be harder to identify and certainly harder to respond to, but students' needs to eat properly, to sleep, to exercise, to be outside, to take care of themselves. So providing tips and strategies for healthy habits, modeling it yourself, drinking your water, having a lunch break, talking about exercising, certainly sharing community resource information about food banks or nutrition for learning or shelters or whatever could be relevant. And then adapting your own learning schedule, which I think lots of you have already done, is, what are those times to get together when you're going to get the most out of your students and kind of hit the best part of their days. And so then finally, just some examples of trauma-informed practices, and they may be things that you're already doing and you didn't realize they were in trauma-informed, but they are so because they're helping to encourage and provide the best learning opportunity for your students. So incorporating small group instruction, no better way to build trust and relationship, to get to know your students personally as well as academically. So find ways to incorporate that. And in the DLP, I think it's even far easier than it would be in a regular classroom to do that. Adding conversation to products for assessment. So schedule a meet or a chat to converse about something that your student has handed in. Deepen your understanding, be able to ask those guiding, prompting questions to really get a good sense of what the student knows and let the student be able to show you fully. Chunking, breaking up a large project that can just seem overwhelming or daunting into smaller pieces with clear timelines and opportunities for check-in and feedback along the way. Substituting high-stakes evaluations. So potentially instead of a test, or if a student performs poorly on a test, giving an option to do something else that's a little more process-oriented or performance-based, so that they can show you their understanding in process or the skills that they have, rather than having a set time and only one way of showing. And yes, this is happening also at university quite a bit these days, so we can do that certainly here. Giving choice, allowing students to take an assignment in a direction that feels safe to them, affirming to them, interesting to them, appealing. And then providing feedback in what we call a positive sandwich. So making feedback real and authentic, but and layering it in something positive first and after. So praising real, authentic strengths, not just, hey, you're doing great, but really being specific. I like when you ask questions about how to use better wording, for example. And then putting in a really clear need for improvement. Be specific about that as well. You really need to pay attention to this. I would like you to ask more questions about this. Be specific, and then following up again with that encouraging comment and praise. So positive sandwich. So that's it. Bite-sized learning. Thanks for the time. And if you have any questions, reach out to me at any time. Tons of resources. Our board has also just launched a trauma-informed practices for educators course through Brightspace that you can check out. And the first module has just been released and more to come. Take care. Bye.